So let's continue. So if you have just joined us, so welcome again to our exclusive event from to product, a special workshop for HexaFall Hackathon. So we will be diving deep into building GenAI apps with none other than Binita Shah from Google. So let's give a small introduction before we start. So it's my absolute pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Vinita Mukesh Shah. Vinita is the product operation lead from Google Ad where she works at intersection of advanced machine learning policy and real world impact. So she will be actually giving us tutorials how to build impactful GenAI applications using cutting edge tools and technologies like Gemini. So over to you, Vinita, ma'am.
Sure. Thank you so much, Manish, and thanks everybody for having me. It's exciting, as well as like really promising to see so many people interested in Gen AI and artificial intelligence, which is going to be probably the next big thing. Um, I will present my slides, which have a small introduction uh, about myself, and then we can go ahead. So you can see the screen, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool. So prompt to product. So basically, because we have limited time, it's not gonna really go into all the details of how would you build an app, but I'm gonna leave you with some good information to get started, and more than just the technical aspects, also thinking about the business aspect of when, how, and what when you build an app, what it should look like. Because if you try to build an app which nobody's gonna use, it's probably going to be not so helpful. So but before that, a little bit about me. Yeah, as I think Manish already said, I've been 6 years at Google, working on AI ML in the trust and safety space. So basically, keeping the internet safe. I'm based in Chicago, or a lot of you might also relate to it, where Doom 3 or The Dark Knight were filmed. Um, I'm passionate about building smart and safe technology. I love to travel and work out, but so far the place that I've traveled, which I've loved the most, is New Zealand. It's literally like wallpaper, like scenery everywhere. And yeah, I love to eat as well, which is like exploring new places to eat, etc. But I'm vegetarian, so the options get limited. But still, I try my best. So that's a little bit about me. And I think we can move on to prompt to product. So the whole goal is like, let's build something amazing together. And when we say amazing, it's basically amazing, useful, safe, and all of that. So what are we going to do today, right? We're going to see how do you take an idea of an app, how do you plan for success, what do you do to build it, and then finally how do you launch it. And these are actually the four stages that, not just like for this app but any project, it starts with ideation, it ends with a launch. Of course, there are many micro steps within it, like testing and user feedback and UI UX and all of that, but I would just bucket it into these four phases. So step one, right, like what is the big idea? Every great app starts with a problem worth solving, right? And in this case, you have to come up with what is your big idea. And taking Indian economy in the context, like the Blinkit and Zepto, right, their big idea was that they want things delivered quick and fast, and it really worked especially for working population or population which doesn't have much time in the many of the main metropolitan cities. So ask yourself, whenever you think of building a product, what frustrates you daily, and then can AI solve that? And then who else has this problem? Because if it's just a you problem, you're building an app only for yourself, which is okay if the goal is not monetization or reach in the future. So you start with the big idea, and in that big idea you ask yourself these three questions. Then you go down to research and validation, right? Make sure your idea has some ground before you start building an entire product around it. So you talk to people. your friends, your family, potential users, and talk to people who can actually give you real advice or guidance and who will be open to sharing honest feedback. Check competition, what exists already and what's missing, right? Because if something is already having a big market share, we don't want to enter that, or we want to enter it with caution or using different strategies. So size the market, how many people need this. And there'll be people who will come and tell you, yeah, it's really a great idea, but in the end they will not be the ones buying it, right? So we also want to make sure that when somebody says it's a good idea, they would also actually be paying for that service if it actually comes out. So step 3 is choose what AI superpower you want to use. You want to use text or GPT-4, you want to use image creation, you want to use speech to text, like things happen in Google Translate, or Claude conversations, or whatever mid journey you want to create, like an art of some sort. So I would say always start simple, and then you can add more features. And especially when a new product is there and you start with basics and you want people asking for more features, and then you build it, it kind of creates like a premium, or like a you know curious kind of situation for everybody. And then plan your minimum viable product, which is what's the one thing your app should do absolutely, and how do you users interact with your app. And then you come up with your basic mock-up UI UX design, and kind of see how it goes. But don't over clutter your app, right? iPhone, which is one of the most successful phones in the world, they wanted to keep their UI extremely clean and simple, and we see that even until now. And I think that is very important for a good product. Step 5, it's time to build. And the best part about AI is that there are people who would be interested in coding, which are like hardcore developers. And then there are people who are not interested in coding, but they have the business sense. So there are no code options. And we have a lot of platforms for that, like Bubble, Webflow, Zapier. We have low code platforms like Streamlit, Gradio, and Replit. And we'll talk about Replit more. And then we have full code, like React, Python, and APIs. And depending on what you want to accomplish and what your goals are, you can choose either of these options. Of course, there will be pros and cons in each, and the flexibility that you get when you fully code yourself versus when you take a tool which is built in. But I think it just depends on how comfortable you are and how fast you want to get where you want to get. And finally, step 6, test early and test often. We want to make sure that we see how people are using, what works, what does not work for the in terms of when we are collecting data, and then try to improve, iterate, and just relaunch faster. And every time an app or something fails or a feature fails, it's just telling you that there's something that needs improvement. So it's not like a complete failure if you can turn things around. And then finally, launch and share. It's time to show your creation to the world. So you deploy it, you share it on social media, friends and family, uh, different product platforms. And then finally, just listen to the feedback, see your user growth or whether it's improving or decreasing, and then go ahead with it. So it's not that we would want to build a perfect app. It's just something which is working, at least if you're just trying to learn from it, right? So that's step 7. I'm probably going to take a pause just to see if we have any initial questions before we can move to the next part. Okay. So, okay. So, actually building. So, your first AI app that you're going to build is like, let's do this like step by step, right? When you show your creation to the world. For example, if it's Study Buddy AI, like sometimes when your friends explain to you concepts before an exam and stuff, it's much easier to understand when, even though you have sat for an entire lecture and the teacher is explaining. It's just because your friends have read through it, they have taken out the important information, and then they just give you that information which is good enough for you to understand the concept, right? So the Study Buddy AI app is just something like that. It's just an example. You can definitely have other examples, and it's simple. You need computer with internet, open API key, or any free tier API access, and 30 minutes. That's it. And in this, the first method is no code, which is the easiest to start with. You just go to Zapier or ChatGPT, or Zapier or Gemini. Uh, I say ChatGPT here because um, I think I don't want to bias you guys to just Gemini. So you can choose whatever platform you want. And then you go to zapier.com, create when I submit a form, connect to the OpenAI, and just see the results, right? Versus Bubble.io, it's a visual app builder where you have drag and drop, interface, built-in AI plugins, and then you can deploy immediately. Again, the time, if you use the no code method, it's just 1 to 2 hours. You will have something workable. It will be free of cost, and the level of difficulty is just beginner level. So it's not too difficult to build something like this. The second method is low code, where you have more control because, of course, you are the one coding a little bit. And in this case, you can use a little bit of Python or Replit, which is browser based coding, no installations needed. I remember during the time when I was an undergrad, it would take sometimes so much time to install an entire software. And then if you didn't do a certain thing properly, you would have to go back and change it and all of that. But I think browser based coding just makes life simpler because you have templates for AI apps, and you can share code with just one click. It's almost like, sharing an Instagram post or something. And then the full code maximum power, this is where, people who really good at coding or want to really get their hands dirty would use it. And that's the web app stack, whether it's Python or Node.js, or using connecting databases, etc. And then for mobile apps, it's whether you want to do it for iOS or Android, and then using Google's framework, which is Flutter, or native iOS, for Kotlin for Android, and Swift for iOS. The thing is that with AI, even when you're doing full code, you can always use AI now, because you can paste a code into Gemini and say that, hey, I'm getting this error. Where is the mistake? And it can help you. Uh, Versus earlier when you would have to go through pages and pages of Stack Overflow, I would say. And this can take time, right? Because you're understanding the system. There will be errors, there'll be exception handling, and all of that. So it can take around 2 to 8 weeks. Of course, depends on your skill set as well. And I would say this is advanced level, but you have maximum flexibility. And that's the power when you code fully. So these are the three methods, which I would just summarize as: you don't have to code at all. You code a little bit, you use a little bit of the UI, and then finally the third one where you fully code by yourself. So there are some learning resources and like next steps on where to go from here in terms of your learning journey, right? I've listed some video tutorials which have some YouTube channels, where they teach all of these things in detail. There is hands-on platform where you can actually keep coding and learning, and they'll give you small little exercises, which goes from Code Camp to Code Academy, and Replit 100 Days of Code. AI specific learning, you'll have OpenAI Cookbook and some other places. And then project ideas, right? So I said AI Study Buddy, AI Story Generator. Like a lot of people use Instagram or WhatsApp, and you can just create, automatically generate stories based on certain pictures, and let AI do the entire job of selecting the right song, doing the right editing, etc. Smart recipe finder, where you just scan what products you have in the fridge, and it gives you, and you select like whether it's healthy, or you're okay with moderately healthy or extremely healthy, and it can give you like a smart recipe finder. Code explainer, So if a code is written, just kind of explaining what is the code doing. And then finally language practice. If and I know there's Duolingo and other apps where you can already learn languages, but going a step further where somebody acts as your buddy and constantly talks to you in the language you want to learn. So these are just some ideas, but I'm sure there are thousands of other good ideas that I haven't touched upon. So now, when it's your turn to build, right? You can start today. You can literally start today. Think of three problems that you face on a day to day basis. Find a partner or a team where you want to build together, learn faster, and then try to ship something in 30 days. Like set a deadline, even if it's like doing spending 1 hour or 1.5 hours every day to kind of on this app. Do that and do it consistently, and you can ship something in 30 days. And I think it's like you're not going to create a Zepto or Blinkit in like an overnight period of time, but when you start somewhere and you get an idea, you might even, right? Because it's just a matter of persistence and consistency, I feel. um, and now actual information on the how and what, like how do you get started. So when we go to Replit, right, and you create a free account, you click, you do these steps, and I don't want to probably go through each of them because um, I don't know if we can follow this along right now, but you just write your app, you can copy paste OpenAI sample code as well, and then when you press run, you can easily see the deploy feature after it, right? And these are the tutorials that I've mentioned. Um, and then if you want to create your app on Bubble, you go to Bubble.io, click the app, name your app, and then choose blank app to start from scratch so that it creates a workspace to build a no code app. Then you design the UI, you add text inputs, you ask make a button, a simple button, and then you display the AI's response. It's as simple as building your mini chat GPT, which you can ask questions using the simple text input and the button. Finally, add the Open AI plugin. That's where your chat GPT, Gemini, or whatever will come, all the data. And then you can just paste it in your Open API key. And basically, you can talk to chat GPT now behind the scenes. And then you set up a workflow. So, for example, when a button is clicked, what happens? Call the API interface with whatever the user has asked, and then display all the results in the text box. So, and that's what powers your that would power your app. So this is using Bubble.io, and it seems really simple, and I can promise you it is, because everything is basically done for you. GPT API is already available. The simple app workflow you can just create with no lines of code written at all. So this is the thing that I was talking about. But now when we talk about Replit, which is a little low coding situation, I have given some example code here already as we move forward in the slides. It's up to you. You can even do both and see how you feel about it. But yeah, you can choose Python as a language, name something like GPT chatbot or my personal chatbot, whatever you want to like name it. And then you install the OpenAI library in the shell, and this installs all the tools that you would need to connect to GPT-4. It's like installing an app on your phone, but in this case, it would be for Python. And then you will add this code that I've written. And it's a good learning, because if you, while copy pasting the code, face any errors and stuff, use all the AI tools available to you to kind of fix those errors. That's also a good learning, I would say. And then finally, run your chatbot. Like, click the green button, ask a question, and see AI answer it in real time. And this is just me giving you examples of building your own AI chatbot just to kind of get you hands on. But of course, once you get a hang of it, you can build a way more complex or innovative app using AI. So that's all the content I had, because I don't think that we would get all the time to like literally build an app together. But I'm happy to see if you guys have any questions, or uh, just something that if you've worked on or anything like that.
So anyone having any doubt or queries can turn on their mic, or they can even drop the comments in the comment section.
It depends. I think what type of coding can get me into. Sorry, I'll start with the first. I tried Replit, but in that my checkpoints got completed. So in Replit, is there any refilling or reset checkpoints in 24 hours or more? Like in that, five checkpoints are given, but will it reset after a given point? Okay. So I think Replit, of course, has its limitations, right? And checkpoints are part of what they call their cycles or a boost system or whatever. But yes, the checkpoints do reset. It is not instantaneous. Uh, they have a monthly or 24-hour quota, and depending on the resources they have. So if you have used five to all the checkpoints that you have, it is limited for free users. So after you have finished all your checkpoints, you either need to pay or you can just wait, because it has a limited daily or monthly usage, or you can do a subscription based probably models. So
Ma'am, do you know any specific time for that? Like fixed time is there any? A month or
I,
24 hours? Because
it
I'm
depends.
building an app in that, but I got
Yeah,
stuck in that.
yeah. So you cannot manually reset it, and I think there is a, it doesn't depend on the time, actually it depends on the resources you've used. So if you use your resources within 24 hours, you'll have to wait for 24 hours, but if you've used your monthly quota itself in 3 days, then you would have to wait even like 30 days. So it just depends on the quota. That's what my
So
understanding
in my
was.
case, I think it's 30 days only because I've used
Yeah,
all the one.
yeah. Or yeah, or we can upgrade the plan to hacker or pro, or yeah.
No, I don't want to upgrade because in for deployment they also they ask for upgrade, but I choose downloading the whole code and upload it on Vercel and then deploy it. So it will be nice.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
that these are the limitations that I completely agree, and I think um that's why I think Replit has a limit of like say 100 prompts a month or something, right? So
I don't know about prompts, but it's about checkpoints. I definitely know.
and 5 to 10, I think. Yeah. So okay.
Thanks.
uh yeah, what type of coding can get you into Google? Definitely, I think it depends on the role, but for software engineers, that is definitely a rigorous software engineering interviews, which will have you code. But if you're looking at other roles, like more operational focused roles, uh, or even like a product manager or an associate product manager, in this case, it would not be all these rounds of coding. So even if you've just built an app using low code and stuff, it's fine as long as you clear like other rounds of interviews. So it just depends on what role are you targeting and what your interests are. I think when I joined Google, I did not have multiple coding rounds because I'm not in the software engineering kind of role. So for me, it was a lot on, at the time, it was a lot on SQL and just product strategy and how I think, which is a lot of these hypothetical questions. But I'm sure it depends on each and every role profile. So if you have any role in mind, I could probably help you better. So could you also tell how I can use Postman for API testing, because it's confusing. So when you mean like Postman, like what exactly are you trying to test, and what is the error that you get? Because um, once you've installed and you've created the new HTTP request, you hit whatever tab, you choose the HTTP method. What is the exact problem? Let me see. Because I know that for APIs, I think you have different, like you have to choose the right HTTP method. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to fetch data or send data or just update or remove the data? You have to enter whatever request URL you have, add the parameters needed. So it just depends on what exactly are you trying to test with Postman, specifically for chatbot testing and its answers. I think to test for like chatbot, you should know what format are you using. So in this case it would be post, because you are posting the question, and then you set up the request in Postman, right? We're using that method, um, whatever chatbot API slash the chat or whatever, and then you set the right content type, which would be application or whatever JSON in this case, and your API key if needed, like what is your authorization. And then there are some example codes that you can get in online or another, like whatever format, and then click send and you should get a reply, uh, you know and then you can test the accuracy of it. I think you can also automate the test using JavaScript code or something which you can find online. So I think, um, let's just say you're testing an API, like what is the capital of India, and the reply is something. It just, you can verify if it is giving you the correct information. So I think you will have to go through the different steps, and then we can say, how can I start with AI? Sorry, am I missing any question? Can you suggest something regarding Copilot Kit and its usage to perform backend task in a web app? um So I think it's definitely an emerging open source framework, Copilot, and it helps you integrate like different AI copilots, right? Like LLMs and GPTs, and it directly puts it in your web apps, etc. But Copilot is helping you build an AI assistant, right? And that's where it can be used for doing some basic backend task like querying your databases or calling your internal APIs or writing a file to, some place in a storage section or something. And I think user input will be there, then your copilot UI will be there, and that will interact with your backend, whether it's your GPT-4 or it's whatever LLM. And then the connectors in copilot UI go behind the scenes and talk to all the copilot backend tools and the APIs and functions. So I think the main things is that copilot um, Kit has its UI, its backend function, which helps in the different function, and then the LLM integration. So, okay. How can I start with AI? I think this is a great question. Um, AI is everywhere now. So I think first thing that anybody who is starting off in AI should do is understand the different concepts. What is generative AI versus what is artificial intelligence alone, versus what is machine learning, what is GPT-4, and understanding these basic concepts. I've given you some AI specific tutorials, so you can go through them on YouTube channels and stuff. In fact, some of the times even Instagram reels have these small tiny like concept explanations. I forget the name of the Instagram page, but it's almost like bringing it to your feed on what you can learn, or even YouTube shorts have it that way. So I think, uh, you can just start there, I think. Yeah, I will provide the PPT. Yeah. In the free plan of Replit, it also has limitations in database, like it's temporary after a week, or sometimes it got uh, vanished. So in Bubble IO, is there any limitations like that? I think any free tool um, might have limitations, I would say, right? And I think that's where I said there is the maximum flexibility that you have with coding by yourself, right? But I think um, from what I remember, and of course I can be wrong, so double check, but Bubble has a lot more uh, storage limit for you than Replit in the free plan. So I think it's something in the order of, it has megabytes in Replit to gigabytes in Bubble. So till the time, if you're using it just for learning and stuff, till the time you hit the free limit, it will be a while for Bubble, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So bubble.io is best, right? Better than Rapid.
Yeah, but then you'll have lesser flexibility because everything is in, you know, it's just like drag and drop and all of that. But
Okay,
in
like
terms of,
WordPress, like WordPress.
I think what's best is definitely coding on your own, Python and stuff, because
But it
then,
takes too much of time and energy.
yeah, exactly. Time, energy, and the difficulty. But then you don't have to code everything. Now you have help from these AI platforms, so you can definitely use them.
Yeah,
But
that's
if
the point.
yeah,
Correct. Because I have tried Lovable and Bolt and all, but after that I tried Rapid. But then I experienced Rapid is good in the way of functionality and UI UX also.
yeah. So that's where the limitation comes in. So it's okay if you don't want to pay, then you can just wait until or try to
I'm
find
actually
something
wait
similar
only.
to Replit. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I think
Ma'am, one question from my side also. So I didn't have used any no-code tool yet, but I have used coding assistants like V0 or GitHub Copilot. One problem that I suffer is like they hallucinate sometimes. Like I've seen the logic is already written, and I've asked them to like modify it little bit, and what they have done, they have totally rewritten everything, the entire logic as well some other components too.
yeah, I have myself faced this, and it's definitely an issue because they do hallucinate sometimes, and you know, I think this is where at least what's worked for me is I make my prompt extremely then clearer, and to a point that sometimes I even scold the agents. I'm like, listen, I do not want you to rewrite the code, please just modify based on my ask. Currently you have rewritten the code in a way that I do not want it, and then you can always switch. You know how you have different models in ChatGPT or in Gemini. You can try to use a different model at that time. So from GPT 4.5 to GPT 4.0 or something like that, and see if it works. I'm not saying it will always work. And then sometimes what they like, sometimes what you can also do is start a new chat and then just copy paste your prompt, but make it more lucid for the agent to understand and retry. I am not saying that it always works. Sometimes I just have to give it some time because I think either their memory is full or it's just gone into that infinite loop cycle, and it just doesn't give, because they don't have, sometimes they don't see the code the way human does. And that's why I think we all probably will still have jobs and stuff because AI is not perfect.
Yes,
So
ma'am. Yeah,
yeah.
ma'am. I see this problem many times. Like they often lost context, ma'am.
Yeah, and they often lose context because they also have limited memory. So what happens is when you try to give it lot of code and lot of things, it just keeps, it is not able to parse all of it together and store it and then give you an answer. So what has also worked for me is breaking down the problem into smaller parts, and as I said, trying to switch models. And sometimes I just ask multiple agents at the same time. So I put the same thing on ChatGPT, Gemini, and cloud, and then I just see who is going to give me an answer and then use that. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. One last question, ma'am. Like you have already mentioned tools like Replit, but what are your favorite and go-to tools for building applications? Like quickly, ma'am.
So
Low
it's
code,
not, sorry.
like low code tools, and please help
Yeah,
us.
so for me, honestly, these things are not really applicable because Google, within its ecosystem, and once you join Google, you will know they have their version of everything. Even SQL, we have Google SQL
Yeah,
to
ma'am.
do.
I've heard about their own version control system also.
Yeah, so we have Cider for our own thing and everything. So this is just something I read and I brought into this presentation because I know that I cannot tell you about Google internal tools because it's going to be meaningless for you. So for me, I don't have a preference because I don't use them that often. I just found Replit to be easy to use, or even Bubble, so I just mentioned those as options. But I don't think Google internally I use any of these tools. So yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yeah.
Like, as the role of engineers, like shifting from just coding to like including prompts and all. So I have two questions. Like, what is the best practice for writing a prompt if you write it, and is it still worth learning and mastering the programming fundamentals like operating system, DBMS, and or like C fundamentals or something like that?
Yeah, I think treat I'll answer your first question first. The first question on how do you write good prompts is, think of these agents as extremely dumb. Don't explain to them as you're trying to tell a human that, hey, how do you do this? Try to explain to them like, hey, you are my code reviewer. Act as a code reviewer and review this piece of code that I've written. What are the potential problems you think it can face, and how do you solve it? Like, be as explicit, clear as possible. So instead of telling, for example, somebody asked, right, how do I learn about AI? If you tell me about AI, it is going to vomit out everything it knows about AI to you, which might not even be meaningless. But however, if you say something specific, like explain how natural language processing works, or explain how generative AI is working out, or what is machine learning, then you will get a much more better answer. As I said, you always should tell what you want the agent to do. Act as an a coding expert, act as an interviewer, act as a professor grading my exam, like whatever, so that you get the answer in the context of where and how you are asking, right? And then don't put everything in one go. First, ask it to say, for example, what is generative AI, and also tell me when generative AI I use and how I can do this and what I should do. No. What is generative AI? Okay, now that I know generative AI, where do you think generative AI is most commonly used? If it is most commonly used, where are the problems or limitations of generative AI? So if you break it down, it will be easier for you to digest the information and for it to also give you the information. So I think it just, and sometimes like I face this a lot. Like for example, when I ask even Gemini something, it will give me like at least 1 or 1.5 page of information when I'm just looking for 3 lines. So I always mention, in 4 bullet points, can you explain this? And then from those 4 bullet points, I further ask, okay, can you explain this bullet point more in detail? That makes my life way easier because I don't want to go and read the whole, you know storybook. So yeah. um
Yeah, ma'am. And about the next question, I mean, like the fundamentals part.
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
I mean, ma'am, is it still worth learning and spending time like mastering the programming fundamentals and the core subjects that we have in BTech?
so I think, yes, I think you should learn that. For example, I'll give you a simple example, right? Even though AI and ML is progressing, when you come for an interview, say for a software engineer and stuff, you are going to be asked questions about algorithms or OS concepts and all of that in interviews. So the even though AI has gone ahead and been modified, the way interviews are still conducted, they have not revamped the whole interview structure yet. So they are not going to go and tell you in an interview, okay, you can always use ChatGPT or Gemini and answer these questions. Not really, right? You will still be expected to know, especially if you are aiming for a software engineer role. If not for a software engineer role, honestly, and if you're planning to do like, just an example, you don't have to do it like an MBA, and you're going to do MBA finance, then I'm not sure how much these concepts are going to help you. Um, but all that being said, um, I will not be responsible if you get less marks and your parents scold you. So that is a different problem. Uh, and the last thing I want to say is nothing that you've learned goes waste in life. I think something, somewhere, someplace you will definitely use it. How often you use it is different. Like I don't remember using Pythagoras theorem ever in my life till now. So yeah, it's the curriculum versus industry. What they ask you to do on your daily job are very different. But to get you to the job and answer the interview questions, you will have to know the some of these concepts at least. So yeah, I don't want to be diplomatic, but that's honestly the harsh truth. So
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And the last question. The
mhm.
question is that what do you prefer, building a software from a low code or a no code platform, or maintaining and creating an application which I mean, from coding from scratch and which is scalable? What do you think, ma'am?
So I think no code, low code, I would start with if I'm just testing out on how it's looking or whatever. But if I really want to build something at a level of, uh, where I'm actually going to take that app to production, I would use coding. But if I'm just doing it for like, learning something, or then I don't want to invest all my time in coding, and I would just do like a no code quickly from initiation to concept. I would just do it in a no code environment. um, Particularly for me, I think also it depends on how many people or manpower I have, right? Like, and I think at this point, even coding environments, because no code environments will have again limitations and I'll have to pay for some things. If I go with the coding environment, I can always ask help with certain parts of the code. And because you guys are all students, it can help you put something on your resume which is of substantial worth, that hey, I created this app from scratch and I learned this. Um, it might feel very frustrating when you get an error. Like I remember sometimes sitting on the same error for like, because at that time we didn't have all these AI tools, etc., AI agents, but sitting on the same error for like days and days, and I'm like, why is it not working? But I think that's where you learn the most, like, literally digging deep. So it just depends on what your goal is, but my personal preference would be the actual coding, but using help from these tools wherever applicable, so that I'm not spending 24 to 48 hours on a small error, and I can seek help when possible.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the answers.
Yeah. So can I share something about, if there are MCPs, right? And I'm guessing you mean multimodal contextual program. And I think these basically take in different types of media types of content, which could be text, image, audio, video, code. Um, and basically they process it, and they in a more programmable way. And so it's, you can think of, I don't know, MCPs as a blend of all these LLM models we have, plus software functionality, and but along with that, it has all the real world context. It's like a combination of large language models and Google search and software functionality in one go. And it, of course, across the different media types. And it also remembers each and every session or history. Yeah. So I think that's what at least I know. And yeah, exactly. It is like having a PA all around. Can you share something about your life at Google? Sure, I would love to. I know there are many social media posts and Instagram reels where uh, they show this glorified. We go to the office, have breakfast, take a nap, and then go for lunch, and then play games, and then we come back home. I mean, really, I don't. I'm not. I'm sure. Uh, I have. You guys have to take that with a pinch of salt. We definitely work at Google. It's definitely an amazing company to work, and it has a lot of benefits. But think about three things I would say when you work at Google. You will be working with a bunch of really smart people who know a lot of the work that they are doing. So you have to always keep yourself updated and keep yourself on your toes, but at the same time be grounded enough to be able to learn from others. That's number one. And people are really nice, so they will help you out if you ask them in the right way or approach them. Second, yes, there are a lot of benefits, but the benefits are given so that you can do your job well, right? So the food is given so that you don't have to waste time and figuring out what to eat, where to eat, because it's just given. Or the breaks are given because you've had a difficult project and you just want to take a break. Or sometimes even when we are playing like a ping pong or something, or table tennis, whatever you call it, we are still discussing like, hey, so how would that work, etc. And I think lastly, I think the satisfaction of solving a problem at a global scale uh, is something. For example, if you do data analysis, it's always going to be big data because we're talking about billions and billions of record, right? So having worked at that scale, any other scale would probably be easy. I also want to call out the disadvantage sometimes is Google has a lot of its internal tools. So getting used to them, learning them, etc. And then when you want to leave the company to another company, you will have to redo the whole thing because you've lost touch with the actual industry things. But I think it's all a learning curve. So yeah. And yeah, the food is great. I think the food in offices in India is much better than the US offices. But um, yeah, food is definitely a great, I would say, benefit to have. So, what do I work at in Google? So, as I said before, so I work in trust and safety, which is basically, in Google Ads. So, when you see an ad in India and you see that uh, you get usually good ads, but if you see any spammy or bad content or anything like, for example, alcohol ads are banned in India, so it's my responsibility to work with the product team um, and work on the product itself so that these ads are not shown in India. And it just seems like so simple, but there are a lot of people trying to game the system, etc. So how do we prevent that from happening? What are the analysis needed? How do we make sure our product is uh, not vulnerable to all these people trying to abuse the system? And this includes across like Google search, the Play Store, YouTube, wherever you see ads. I basically you know uh, would work on that. Yeah, reviewing and creating a barrier for wrong things done for the product. So making sure that the product and all the features in it are taking care of it itself. And of course, we have two types of ways of doing this. One is through actual human efforts, and one now is a lot through AI ML, so we have to keep our models updated. What features are used? How is the feature performing? Do we need to upgrade a model? Do we need to supplement it with another smaller model, and all of that? Yeah, definitely. We definitely use ML models, but trust me, in the real world, it's not just a simple yes or no. There are a lot of things that come into the model at that scale, um, because we also cannot prevent the actual good. For example, a model with, I'll give you a simple example, right? A model with a bottle with a label of ethyl alcohol, which could be used like, or rubbing alcohol, which could be used for cleaning or several other purposes. The model will still see it as alcohol. So how will do we make sure that the model recognizes actual alcoholic drinks versus these kind of things used for alcohol? This is a very simple example, but um, we have to make sure that this happens, and there are many variations of it. So how do we take care of that is something that we can we do on a daily basis, I think. Yeah. Yeah, and for the comment of we love Indian food, I absolutely love Indian food. I think within India itself, there are so many varieties of food we can get. Um, yeah, I think Indian food needs a lot more recognition
Yes, now.
than we get. So yeah.
So, what an incredible session. Thank you so much, Binita ma'am, for sharing such insightful and amazing guidance. So, Hex hackers, we hope you are now feeling much more confident and you can now turn out your ideas using generative AI easily. So we will be sharing all resources, including the slides, into our official socials and also Discord channel. So keep tuned for upcoming exciting events. And at last, I would like to say that tomorrow we have another event, so kindly join that. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Vinita ma'am, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys being there, and it was so much fun. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or
Yeah, ma'am.
uh,
It will be my pleasure, ma'am.
yeah. Thank you so much. That's all I was saying. Cool. Bye bye, everybody. Bye.
So Exactly. I think we can start living right now. So we will be ending our meet. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Bye, guys.
Bye
Thank you,
bye.
Manish. Thank you, Manish, for organizing this.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you
Got much
to you
knowledge
also
from
for
your side,
joining.
bro. Thanks for the session.
Welcome.